Joining me this week on the Peach Life podcast is Chase and Mariajose as they travel throughout the country, first in their skoolie and now in their new van. Follow along as we gain some incredible insights into the choices and possibilities of going even smaller. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining me today.
For sure.
Thank you for having us.
I'm really excited about this. You guys have such a cool channel, such an amazing journey, that's all over the place. So, one of the first things that I wanted to ask right off the bat was, what really sparked and caused you guys to decide to step out and take, such a big risk to sell your home, buy a bus, decide to get out on the road? You guys talk me through your journey. What are the things that kind of caused and sparked that?
Oh, it's a loaded thing, and then at the same time, it's kind of crazy because we just went head first into it over the span of like 7 days, from odd concept to buying a school bus and deciding to do everything. I think all in all, we probably go back to the end of the year 2017.
Yeah.
My dad he loves YouTube, and he had been watching all of these people, and by all of these people, it was really like Scott and KJ from Roll With It Bus, some guy building what he called the Hoosier Cruiser in Indiana, and like one other person converting school buses. And I remember looking at him. We were sitting at their house. Yeah. We lived not too far away from them. And I looked at my dad and I was like, yeah, that's cool. But who in their right mind would ever want to live in a school bus?
I know. At the time, I was like, that's very cool, but I would not be able to do it.
Yeah. So then the new year happens, and we start, catching ourselves watching these people converting their school buses on YouTube as well, like January, February.
And we will live through them. Like, we will watch and be like, oh, I wish that was us. Like, I wish we could do that.
Yep. And then her birthday in February, at the end of the month, I go into work, any normal day. We had one of her friends in from Chicago, kind of hanging out with us. And as soon as I got to work, I got an email that was like, close your stores, get all your customers out, have all of your employees hop on this mandatory call. And I was like, oh yeah, no, something bad's happening. And it was a call to let us know that we had 3 months left and we were all closing our stores. There was this massive corporate restructure, and I was being propelled out of the workforce, head first. And we had kind of already been talking about doing the bus thing, and we still had 3 months to figure it out on temporary assignments.
And also was kind of like, well, we could look for another job, or you could look for another job, or change our lives like completely.
Yep.
And it was like, why not? It's almost like we got this opportunity, and it was like, or you take it or you leave it.
So we closed my store down. That was the first one. And then my temporary assignment was to go all across really the Midwest and the Southeast and close stores down. So like Tennessee, all the way up to Ohio, Indiana, a couple of other places. And for a month, I was like out of the house, just traveling around, helping people close their stores, trying, to keep employees' minds in the right place and spin things in a positive manner. And Marijose had a bad day at work one day, and
I was in the parking lot, and when I look up, there's this big school bus, and I was like, this is a sign that I need to get out of here.
Oh yeah.
And I sent the picture to Chase, and I was like, let's do it. Let's buy a school bus. Little did I know, he already like researched everything. He was like sending me pictures like, oh yeah, I already looked this up and this one. And I was like, oh, okay.
So it went from her finally, giving the definite, screw going to work every day. Let's do something radical, buy the bus, to 6 days later, we bought the bus.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that is such a quick transition. I mean, that is just incredible. I ourselves, that was kind of the situation too, was, we had already decided we were going to go down that journey. We had already been living in a trailer that we had bought and renovated. And when COVID happened and basically I got laid off of work or furloughed, I mean, I still had my job because it was at a casino. So it was just a waiting game. And I had almost 10 months off, where that's in that scenario. We had decided we were thinking of either getting an art studio for my wife, renting one out, doing something. And we had the space here in our yard. So we decided, hey, you know what, let's just go for it. And just, you know, we kind of made the same decision within like less than a week. And like a week later, we're at like Lowe's, literally just bringing home truckfuls of stuff to start building.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And the art studio, speaking to that thing's really, really rad. It's got the single slant, like pitch roof. I love that. That's kind of what we're thinking about in the future for something small.
And we did it knowing that we would move it, because our next goal is we're going to be buying some property, some land up there. And we knew that we needed to be able to basically have it moved one time from our here up there. And then that would give us a base to kind of start out with. Because one thing you guys know as living tiny is, you know, you're always looking for little ways to get extra space wherever you can. And I know for my wife, she's a painter, and that it just takes a lot of space. There's no way around it. So, you know, giving her this little area, which, I mean, obviously I get to use it as kind of a podcast studio as well. So, you know, I got to, you know, get my use out of it. But
that's cool.
I love what you guys are doing. I did have one of the most interesting questions that I see when it comes to people deciding this is, do I go skoolie or do I go van life? And there's so many good, you know, ups and downs on both sides, but you guys are the perfect people to talk to that have had both. And for people out there that may be wondering, depending on their lifestyle, whether they have kids or no kids, pets, can you guys just kind of maybe go into that a little bit, whether if people are kind of on the fence about some of that?
Well, truthfully, when we decided to go with the bus, at the time we were like, well, we're downsizing from a house. Why we could not go with the biggest size of bus, you know, like extra space, why not? And we also got a lot of comments of people being like, I don't get why you buying a bus. Why don't you just buy an RV? And at the time it was like the right decision for us. We both love creating and like changing things, and we wanted to have like hands on the whole project. So I think that's why like RV wasn't in our plans.
Okay.
But to Marijose's point, like we were coming out of a 2,000 square foot house going to something that's less than 300 square feet of livable space. And we really, I think if we could have found a bus that was larger, like a 45 footer, which you can find some of those out in the Southwest, we probably would have gone that route. We ended up with a 40-foot bus. And you've said this time and time again before, correct me if it doesn't still stand, but I believe it does. The only reason that we loved being on the road so much is because we were able to transition into small living in a very large space.
Yes.
The longer we were on the road, we realized that, you know, 300 square feet is massive.
Yeah.
And that comes with a lot of pros, and it definitely has disadvantages on the road as well. Because when you hit a bump, the larger vehicle you're in, that bump's maximized. You hit a curb, you get stuck. Just the sheer weight of everything compounds in a larger vehicle. But I truly do believe we've been doing what we've been doing since 2018 as a result of getting the largest vehicle that we possibly could.
And I think the beauty of the whole thing is that if you make the decision of like going smaller into a bus or a van, you get to pick what is the perfect match for you. So if we had kids and we wanted to get on the road, probably a bus would have been like the smartest decision. After us having the bus, we realized, well, just 2 people and 2 dogs, it was quite a bit of space. And we're like, well, we probably could go smaller. But if we went from the house to the van, I don't know if we would have lasted that long.
That makes perfect sense. Now that you guys have transitioned to the bus, seeing all the differences, I mean, I imagine that there's a lot more places that you can go and get into that you just aren't even close to possible with the bus. And especially, you know, when you have a bus and you're towing a vehicle behind it, I mean, you ended up, you know, probably being almost 55, 60 feet, you know, by hand. So I imagine that you guys are finding some really cool locations that you guys weren't able to find before now with the smaller vehicle.
You're spot on. Yeah.
And it's funny because I feel like there's these small little things that we're enjoying in the band that is like very simple for normal people, I guess. But for us, it's like luxuries. Like we get to sit next to each other and talk without having to scream. And we have like electrical windows that you can roll down.
It's not so loud that we can't listen to podcasts while we're sitting beside each other. So there are major pros to the small space as well. But, you know, that's something that we're always exploring is yes, I think this may be profound. I think we're much happier in the van than we were in the bus. For some of those simple reasons. Like, for instance, we can pull up at a Trader Joe's in almost any city, downtown area, and park in one single space and not feel like we're fighting traffic and fighting lanes of traffic to try and get over. And it's subtleties in the van that just make life easier.
It's like you lifted that weight of stress out of us, being like having to like check before we head somewhere. Are we going to be able to fit there? Are we going to be able to like park? Sometimes even on the road, we were driving and the length and the size of our bus wasn't permitted in the highway. So you're like driving and you're like, I don't know what to do, you know? So with the van, it's like, you don't have that problem at all.
Yeah. So I mean, that's, I think, a big thing for people out there is that just the simple fact of being able to travel and not have to think about every single parking lot you go into, every single city, you know, how you're going to maneuver. Are you going to get stuck in a bad spot? So that does seem to be a really positive thing about this. Now, one thing I thought was cool was you guys really made the back of the van like just a transformer. I mean, I thought that was really cool that you guys were able to utilize so much space there.
And that kind of bred from having the bus initially too, because we wanted a multi-purpose. When you're in something this small, it's 14 feet, linear feet of living space. So you have to kind of get
more creative. For
sure. And in the bus, we had separate rooms. So we had dedicated seating at the front that turned into a secondary bed. We never got to use it. We always thought we'd have friends come and stay with us. And we only just met people on the road that wanted to like live in while we were cooking and feeding everybody. But then we had a dedicated bathroom and we had a dedicated sleeping space, and everything was very precise for what its specific, purpose was in the bus. And in the van, it's really difficult to still have those dedicated spaces. And we talked very early on about having a bed that was truly dedicated bed. We didn't want like a Swiss Army knife of pillows that we had to put together and then throw sheets on and, sleep over the creases every single night. We wanted something that was just our solid bed, but that we weren't, ripping out a queen size space of functionality for sitting and working and things like that.
Well, it was pretty much like when we started planning the whole van conversion, we were doing a list of things that we both wanted and what would make living in a van or such a small space more convenient and less difficult. So getting creative was hard, but I'm happy with everything we did.
And by some reports or I guess outside looking in, maybe the Murphy bed is kind of a Swiss Army knife, but it folds up and we still have room to kick our legs out on the sofa, and we've got our table here, and when we're ready to go to bed, we just put it down and we go to bed.
Yeah, it all depends on how quick that transition is between, the easier you can make it. If you can make it to where it's just as simple as 1 or 2 seconds, then like you said, it's not really a utility knife if it's that easy.
Yep.
One thing I wanted to comment on that I thought was awesome is your guys' the old 360 bus tour that you guys did. That was one of the coolest things I've ever seen, because as somebody that loves seeing what is inside of different people's stuff, being able to get a real cool close up like that, take your time to look around. I thought that was awesome. So good job, you guys.
Thank you.
That came just kind of top of mind one day. It's funny, what, Black Friday last year?
Yeah, I don't remember.
I think so. We had been looking at 360-degree cameras for a while, and I finally convinced Marijose to let me buy one. And of all days, it was Black Friday, and we went into a Best Buy.
And they didn't even have it on sale, so I don't even know why we decided.
We picked the absolute worst day possible. But I kind of sold the idea of, we can create content that's not being created right now. I mean, YouTube used to have a 360 or a VR heat map where it would show trending 360 videos based on locale. And then it was such a priority for the platform for like 3 weeks, and then it disappeared.
Yeah.
And I was like, we have an opportunity to kind of pioneer a section of YouTube that's being underutilized right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you have systems built in place that the functionality of 360-degree videos now works as far as your television using your remote. Why aren't we doing that?
Yeah.
And to credit that, though, we haven't done much, if any of it, since, but we have the intention to.
Yeah.
And we're planning on something with the van, and then as kind of like maybe adding a video with our normal weekly flow of the places that we go, if we just absolutely love it, just kind of like scenery and the sounds and full 360-degree viewing experience for 10 or 12 minutes is just kind of like another secondary segment of what we're trying to put out there.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. What about the cooking in a tiny home? I mean, that's something that, we're pretty used to over on our side. You guys have gone from tinier to tinier. How do you find that? It's just so hard for us. It's so hard keeping that clean. So, I love to get other people's opinion.
Well, to be honest, in the bus, I think at the time I was like, oh, this is great. Like, I have enough space for everything. I didn't feel it as much because, of course, if someone was walking, they can just like pass me. I would not even notice. Here in the van is tight.
We have a dance. We totally have a dance. It's almost like working in a restaurant.
Yeah.
Where people call out like left, shoulder, things like that. But I can't attest to the cooking because it's very rare that I do cooking. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I said
make
it in our
like
last
sandwich
video.
sometimes, probably.
Cooking for me is like when we find a restaurant. It's like, okay, I'll cook tonight. We're gonna go here. But the bus I thought would have been way easier. And we were talking about this earlier today, and she was like, no, absolutely not. I have more space in the van for cooking as long as you kind of stay out of my way than I did in the bus.
Yeah. Because in the bus, we didn't think about the kind of like the necessities or like what you doing on regular basis. You know what I mean? It was just like, oh, I got cabinets and I just like find space where I can put everything and just shovel in there, and I will have to move everything if I wanted to cook. And we didn't think about it. In the van, we knew it was a smaller space. We needed something that was going to be functional. So I was like, I need a place for putting cans. I need a place to put dry food. I need a place for my pots and pans. And I love it. I love cooking in the van more than I did in the bus. Also, we had propane in the bus.
And we both hate propane.
Okay.
That was a pain all along because I would be like, did I turn off the propane?
So
did I run out of propane?
And so you guys are able to run it off electric pretty well. That was my next question too, was about your solar system and even adding that to it. So you guys have no problems running everything you guys need with your solar setup?
We've had one issue since we've been on the road with going power negative. And it was in Pisgah National Forest. We were up in the mountains. We were surrounded by nothing but trees. And already at elevation, the time of year in North Carolina. So
there was no sun.
There was no sun at all. I mean, we may have been pulling in at best 3 or 4 amps all day. So not at all. And we were up and it got so bad that our batteries got so low that our alternator isolator wasn't even recognizing them because they were like below that threshold. But aside from that, We have,
Yeah.
I mean, we've got 600 watts up top, and we have almost 600 amp hours of lithium iron phosphate batteries. So that powers, I mean, our water heater. We've got a 4.5 gallon water heater, all electric, and our induction cooktop, and pretty much everything else.
and
Yeah, the fridge.
lights, whatever.
But yeah, just that one time since we've been on the road in the van, have we had any issues?
Yeah, because we're able to like charge if there's sun out, but also if we're driving, we charge them while
Yep.
we drive. So we haven't had any problem at all.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that is checking to see if your alternator from the van when you're running that will charge your battery banks back up.
Yep. Yeah, we kind of when we were building everything, we looked at like airplanes, and we looked at like boats and all the redundancies that play into that. So we do have a small a generator, a small ultra quiet generator inverter that we've used one time, the time that we went battery negative. And aside from that, you know, alternator, we can still plug in on shore power as well. That's hidden under the van because we didn't really want anything cut through the side of the van. But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then question about the hot water heater you guys had. Is we had actually bought the same hot water heater for the studio here because it was just going to be one little sink. I didn't need it for anything major. And I ended up having a problem with it with ours, and I had to just replace it. And I decided to go with a tankless one that was about a little bit smaller. I do regret the choice now, and I see, you know, that you guys, that I probably should have went back with the same one to have the small preheat tank.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's definitely useful, you know, to have that tank there. So
we love it. I've been really impressed with it. We had an electric and propane water heater in the bus. It was like a 12-gallon Suburban, and we never could get the propane to work. So it was already a nightmare. Our solar system with the bus, it was a major learning curve. The entire build process was just everything from scratch, just trying to pull bits and pieces of everything from YouTube. But we bought a solar system secondhand off of a tiny home, and they had already destroyed the batteries. One of the panels was broken.
We didn't know anything of these at the time. We thought we're like, oh, good deal.
And it was like every day we were on the road, we were finding that we were just losing energy before we could really even use it.
Oh, wow.
But with this little, I think it's a Bosch water heater that we've got in the van. Love it. We flip it on, we keep it just a notch above ideal. And in like 10 minutes, we've got nearly 5 gallons of hot water, and that lasts the two of us for an entire shower, which obviously in a van, we're taking showers pretty quickly, but it's still very nice.
No, that's awesome. So one of the questions, and I saw you guys talking about it the other day too, was when you guys are traveling on the road, the things that you guys are looking when you find places, what are some of the tools you guys use? I mean, that's one of the scariest things I think out there for people is when we get out on the road, what do we do? How do we find places? So if you guys want to talk about that.
Well, it was the same for us. When we first took off with the bus, well, it was the second time. We were heading to Arizona, and we were using Overlander, and we took this turn, and it was mud, just piles of mud, and we got stuck the first time we took the bus like out on the road.
The first time towing the Jeep too. We were like 4 hours away from Nashville. Yeah, and we pulled into the spot at night, and I'm like, oh, I pulled it up on Google Maps after finding it on Overlander. I was like, oh, this is beautiful. This is gonna be great. It was right near a pond on wildlife game management land. And yeah, we ended up not staying there that night. It cost us almost $300 to get towed out.
So rule number 1, drive only at daytime where you can see where you're driving.
Yeah, if it's a new spot, going during the day. But we kind of use a litany of apps. Truthfully, we always like using Google Satellite View as a reference point once we find a location. Okay. And there are a bunch of applications for trying to find free places to camp or boondock. So there's Campendium, there's Overlander, there is
the Van Life
app. Oh goodness, what else? Freecampsites.net, which I don't know that they have an app, but you can search it on your phone. And then we fell in love with an app, and neither of us are hunters. I've never been hunting. I've only been fishing maybe 3 times my entire life, but I fell in love with this app that's it's designed for hunting. It's so people can kind of understand, they can look at federal lands based on whatever the hunting season is and determine with property owners and property lines where they can legally hunt. And I thought, that's brilliant for us because we don't want to pull into what we think is a park and it actually be Earl Jones's land, and we're like 900 feet from where we, should legally be. So we downloaded it. We pay for the annual subscription, and I may just be tooting my own horn here, but I truly believe the best spots that we've ever found have been through that app, referencing, free public lands. And then once we find a place, like it's got different, what they call layers for every state that you can, go, and you can turn on certain layers or turn off certain layers, but we always look for the federal lands or the free public or state lands. And then we go to our internet browser, either on our phone or the computer, and search, like overnight camping regulations for whatever the federal land is, the state land, or that state in particular. And then we kind of go from there, reference Google Maps to kind of get a feel for the road in. And if it matches all of those things and we can reach it before it gets too dark, then we do that. And it's netted us waterfront properties for the last like 6 spots in a row, which is fantastic.
Another thing, and another thing, if you don't feel safe just like driving, or if it's too dark, we stay a lot of times in Walmart parking lots. We still check that they're like open 24 hours.
Cracker Barrel,
Bass Pro Shops. What's another thing?
Are you guys part of any of the different like clubs that people can join, like 1,000 Trails? Or I know there's a few different ones that people can stay at along the way. There's one I can't think of right now that's in California that's got a lot of vineyards and things like that. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But that's one.
We're members of Harvest Hosts.
Yep, that's what I'm thinking of.
Huh?
That's what I was thinking of, Harvest Host. Yeah.
We're members of Harvest Hosts. And man, that's a tough one for us. We've had Harvest Hosts since 2018, and they just comped us an entire year because we weren't going to renew our membership.
Yeah, that's because we were members for a very long time. We never used it because you have to, in the app says just contact in open hours. And
it could be same day, it could be 2 weeks in advance. Like, as long as they're open, you contact them, you make a reservation, and you pull in and you stay there.
The only thing is you support the local business, like you support the winery or whatever you're staying in. Maybe 2 or 3 opportunities we have tried to use it, and they have told us that we have to call like a week or 2 weeks before. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow. I cannot commit to going there.
And that they don't do reservations over the phone. They can only do them over email, which is totally backwards to what the app, and the program says. So they comped us a free year. I may not even try, truthfully.
We'll see. I don't know.
Maybe. Who knows? But we haven't had luck. We've tried several times this year alone, and struck out every single time.
Oh, well, hey, that's good to know. You never know what you're going to get with some of these things. Speaking of you, with campsites versus boondocking, how much for both sides? I mean, I know people obviously try to boondock as much as you can. You can't always. How does that work for you guys?
We try to boondock most of the time.
We're 99% boondock.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only difference we stay in campgrounds is when we're traveling with family and they have an RV, or if we go visit a place where there's no BLM land or free camping places. So our only option is camping.
We try not to do any type of stealth camping in like neighborhoods. I know some people in vans like to do that. We don't. We understand kind of the negative connotation that can come with this lifestyle. And we respect those boundaries. If I think back when we were in our neighborhood, if a white van showed up, and no one in the neighborhood knew who it was, and it parked, a street down from me, and I could see it out my house, I would probably be a little concerned. Maybe not now, but I can,
at the time.
yeah, I can see where that comes into play. So we never do anything like that. We will mooch dock at relatives' houses if they'll let us.
Right.
We tend to try and park in the actual property,
Yeah.
as opposed to on the street, because we've had issues with that with certain city ordinances. But yeah, we prefer boondocking. There's just nothing like being totally self-sufficient and not plugging in, and
Yeah.
all of that. I don't know.
And just being able to, like, if you're parking somewhere there's nobody around, just feeling safe as well. Like, you don't go to bed thinking, oh no, am I gonna get knocked by the police?
Yeah.
Tell me I have to move, or are the neighbors gonna complain they were here? Are we gonna be able to rest? So being in a place where it's just like pretty much us is like the perfect place for us.
As well as having those kind of safe places that along the way, Walmart's, Cracker Barrels, things that you can stop at for the night when you're just, just kind of pass through. How is the chaos?
I think we're much larger fans.
What was that?
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I think we're much larger fans of Cracker Barrels than we are Walmart.
Yeah.
Truthfully, Walmart's a bit loud. It's nice to know that it's there in most places, but Cracker Barrel, holy smokes, has been a recent saving grace through parts of North Carolina, for sure.
We just finally got one like within an hour of us here, so it's been a long time. I was going to ask, how is the kind of the chaos and uncertainty of 2020 affected you guys, your plans, anything like that?
Well, I will say it didn't affect us as much. I will say, like, 2020 has been a rough year for a lot of people, like for everybody pretty much, but we decided at the beginning of the year, without knowing that all this craziness was going to happen, that we were going to build a van.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of a blessing, because we were busy, and of course, like, we will get packages delayed and things like that will make our process of building the van slower. But I think it kept our mind away from everything going on.
That's exactly for me as well. As building the studio during this time is probably the only thing that really just kind of kept me sane and going.
Yeah. And also, like, we got to spend a lot of time with family, and like got to appreciate small things that probably before it was like rush.
Yeah.
And now it kind of like push you to slow down and like actually take a moment for what truthfully is the most important thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's affected many travel plans. I think the whole reason we bought the van is because we finally decided that we were going to do international traveling. With COVID, obviously that's not the case. We're not going to be driving to Mexico and spending a couple of months at a time now, because the uncertainty of if the borders will lock back down, or the issues coming back stateside, and then what that might do for us. So I mean, it totally changed that, but that wasn't a major detriment to us. It just allowed us to kind of focus and spend a little bit more time kind of perfecting what we were building here. And then from a plus side is we have done a lot of traveling during the pandemic, and we do so lightly, and we plan our routes a little bit more specifically. We take cautions in public areas, but I would say a major benefit to traveling right now is most of the highways aren't busy. Most of the places that we go aren't busy. And it's not like, say, for instance, when we were in Asheville, it's not like we were planning on going out to a bar. So that didn't affect any of our plans there. Most of the food we take out because we're likely more comfortable eating it here, watching, a show on Netflix or something anyway. So I think in that respect, it's kind of been beneficial to the way that we travel. On the other hand, there are some places that we would have liked to have probably gone that were closed down or limited capacity because of COVID. But I don't know. We sat in traffic one time driving from Nashville to the Upper Peninsula, all the way to the coast, the Outer Banks of North Carolina, all the way down to Key West. Like, we've been in traffic one time.
this whole time.
in 3.5 months.
Wow. I mean, that's crazy. With the with some of the lessons you guys have learned along the way, I mean, after going through 2 major builds, and just seeing that's actually funny is I thought it was interesting. It took you guys longer to do the van than the bus, a little bit longer. Is that correct?
Yeah. It did. It took us 2 months longer to build the van than it did the bus.
Is that just your guys' schedule, or is it actually kind of harder building out the van because it's smaller?
It's 2-part. That's part of it.
Yeah. Well, at the beginning, when we decided to do the van, Chase was like, we're doing this in 2 months. Like, this is going to be so quick. And then
the heavens opened up and Nashville got more rain while we were here than like any year past.
And also, when we were building the bus, which 99% of it was Chase because I was still working full time, he will like make a wrong cut and be like, oh, well, it's going on a school bus. Who cares? Instead, in the van, he has been like practicing his cuts and like trying to be more detailed about it because, well, I guess in the bus was so big, you will probably not notice like the smaller details, but in such a small space, we were like, this is going to be our home.
Yep.
Let's take care of it and try our best to do it good.
Yeah.
So I think that's why.
And not to say that we didn't take care and practice and everything, but the bus was a major learning experience. Like I said earlier, it was literally, if I didn't know what I was doing, I would walk out of the bus, I would go and sit on the 0-turn mower, I would pull out my phone and I'd search for something on YouTube and I'd watch a video and I'd immediately take what I just visualized and put it into practice. And if there was a cut, mostly with angles, man, school buses are such a weird thing to cut shapes and sizes for. But if there was something that, had a little bit larger of a gap than maybe I would have wanted, I was like, it's in a school bus, it'll be okay. But with the van, everything was much more specific. I mean, just looking at our solar system, I designed our solar system on computer long before I'd even purchased any of the parts for it. I mean, heck, we had already had our layout before we found our van. In SketchUp, I'd already designed everything. But I mean, we put things like the Murphy bed into play, and we kind of built as we went. We knew rough dimensions for everything, but then we made some additions, like our pantry, for instance, that kind of threw the rest of everything to the right and to the left kind of off balance. So we had to make adjustments there. But there were a lot of challenges that we had to figure out, and specifically with the van was how to do a total wet bath instead of separate toilet with tanks and shower. Now everything was all combined into one, and how to make that feasible and practical, and then just making it comfortable while also being in an uber tight space. But really the rain
in the hot.
Yeah, the rain and the heat was really what slowed us down.
Yeah, that's probably bathrooms and having that wet bath is probably one of the biggest sacrifices people have to make when you decide to go, van. I mean, I'm trying to think if I've seen very many or any that are completely separated. Not thinking of off the top of my head, but that's just, it comes with it. What are some of your guys' favorite space saving ideas? You guys definitely have worked your way down to less space, so obviously you have to utilize that space better. Are there any major ones that is if somebody's going to start tiny living, like, hey, this is one of the the first or the best things you could do to utilize space?
Well, kind of like what I said at the beginning, like people probably have different like choices of like, maybe I like cooking and someone else doesn't like cooking, so prioritizing what is best for you. For us, I love cooking, so I knew I needed something that I was able to store a lot of things without taking space from, I don't know, let's say at the clothes or the shower or whatever. So the pantry is one of them that I knew from the beginning I wanted. Something kind of last minute was the trash, because we didn't think about it in the bus and we always carry around this huge bag. And it was a pain in the butt trying to throw it away and where the bag goes. And so we knew we needed a place for the trash. Yeah. So we built this tilt
Yeah, it's a drawer that tilts out on an axis, and it has the perfectly sized trash can for us, and then below that we have a pull-out drawer for cleaning supplies.
Yeah,
I think prioritizing is definitely key.
yeah. I wanted a full-size mirror, so we don't have like a door that I could just put it behind the door. So we had to build a slide-out mirror that came from behind the seat, the driver's seat, or our dirty clothes. That's something that a lot of people don't think about. And we didn't think about it in the bus, so we just had it like in the shower.
We had a clothes hamper that when we drove, we would put in the shower to get it out of the way.
I've seen that so many times. Yeah, that and the trash can are the two. The trash can was the thing for us, and ours was like, even to this day, it is the one thing that's still just in the way, that is hard to find the right spot for it. One thing we had done is we had 2 cats at the time, and we ended up taking, I think, about 2 to 3 drawers that we could waste because the cat boxes were such a pain. And I actually, under our sink, had to figure out a way to convert a couple drawers into a big cat box area. And that has been the biggest space saver in ours, as well as helps with smell. I was able to do some things so, little things like even shoes is another one I don't think a lot of people think of. Like, you got to have a creative way to get your shoes not, out of the way, not onto the floor.
Yeah, I think if you start, I think the biggest, man, how many I thinks can I say right here? The biggest thing to start that's going to make life so much easier when you downsize, or if you're contemplating downsizing, is go ahead and start parting ways with things that you haven't touched in a very long time. And we've done this now 3 times since we've been on the road.
In the van.
And with maybe the same amount of times or more when we were in the bus. And then it's scary to think about how much stuff we donated when we were moving out of our house into the bus.
It was just ridiculous. Like, it was the 2 of us in the house, and we had 10 mugs. And I'm like, why do we have 10 mugs?
Like 6 sets of dishes.
We have 2 friends max that come and visit. You know what I mean? And figuring out the small little things that are taking over your life. Like, just start prioritizing and figure it out, like, what you actually use. And that's something that I started doing before we moved to the van. I would constantly think, okay, I'm cooking. What am I using right now? And I will start writing down like everything that I use. So whenever we were gonna build the van, I knew I needed a space for spatulas and knives and cutting boards and things that probably in a house you just have the space and just throw it in there and you don't even think about it.
Yeah. So we started downsizing, moving out of the house. I think we had 6 or 7 truckloads full, like long bed truckloads full of things that we donated. And then with the bus, we had condensed everything down to hanging 1 wardrobe for me, 1 wardrobe for you, and then the stuff below it. And then moving out of the van, moving out of the bus into the van, we kind of downsized that again by half. And when we were building the van, we were thinking about, okay, well, we need some wardrobes for clothing, for heavier jackets and things like that. And then we need like dedicated spaces for pants and shirts and underwear and stuff like that. So off of our kitchen, we built 3 very large and deep wardrobe drawers. And then above us here, these are all clothing storage. So this one is mine, and this is Marijose's. And we realized after the last 3.5 months on the road that there are so many things that we brought with us that we never touched. So as soon as we came back to the Tennessee area or Nashville area to spend Christmas with family, we just dedicated a day of yes, no. And I cut my wardrobe down probably 60% more than when we had first taken off on the road. But really prioritizing those things early is the easiest way to get over that hurdle, let go of the mental attachment that you have with whatever it may be, and it makes life so much simpler.
Yeah,
it's funny how much of a mental attachment it really is, because I mean, almost everybody I can think of after time on the road and time living tiny, they just say, I can go tinier. I could I just feel more free with less stuff. And I know for me personally, I have definitely found that I could go smaller than we are now. We have a child, and wife is an artist, and I don't think we could ever go smaller than we have right now. I think if we ever did, we'd probably convert a little bit bigger just to have an RV instead of a trailer, just to keep that kind of on. But you know, it's different for everybody. Some people go tiny and decide, hey, I need a little more space. Some people go tiny and say, hey, I could do even less. But I really love your guys' journey. You guys have done and have so many things that people can learn from, and I just want to create a place where people can listen and be able to say like, hey, I can do this too. I can, you know, get out there and try. Other people have succeeded before me. And it is such a beautiful way of living that lets you really value what's important in life and not get so caught up in you know, just all the other little things in life. So I really am so appreciative for you guys and people like you that are out there just doing amazing stuff. Are there any future projects, plans, destinations you guys have coming up or that you'd like to do?
Well, first off, that was a huge compliment. Thank you so much for that. It's surreal for both of us
for sure.
to think that we've inspired even one person. I think I still think of our YouTube as like something for my dad to watch to make sure that, you know, we're safe out there on the road. So it blows my mind every time I think about the little community that we've created. So thank you. That means a lot to hear that.
Yes.
As far as big projects, we're a creative couple. I'm sure you and your wife understand what we're about to say, but we're always thinking ahead. I think being on the road has put us more into the entrepreneurial side. We're constantly almost stretching ourselves thin with thoughts of what we want to do and the things that we're implementing already. But I think the next largest project is to buy land where we're planning on building a small home. We're talking maybe 1,000 square feet, modeled quite stylistically like your studio. We love that style. In addition to that, we're considering a large garage with 2 12-foot bays to start doing van and bus conversions of our own for people, like commissioned builds. But that would be kind of the latter end of that project.
Okay.
And then,
well, when we finished the van, Chase came to me and said, here's a piece of paper and I'm going to have my own. If we were going to build a bus, what would be your layout? And we both draw a layout for this fake bus. And it was pretty much the same layout.
But then Marijose looked at me and she said, wait a minute, are you trying to build a bus? And I was like, but wait, hold on. You've clearly been thinking about a layout as well. But not for us to live and travel in, but just as something to have for people to stay in and maybe take it out eventually. But
I thought that was really cool that the person that got the bus was turning it into basically like a kind of Airbnb cabin rental. I mean, that's such a perfect way, like, and especially for you guys to be able to see that other people and maybe even people that have started by watching your channel might get to go and experience that, rent that out for the night and be like, hey, this was awesome. You know what? Let's commit. Let's buy a bus. Let's get out there, or a van, whatever it is.
Yeah. At the beginning, when we thought about selling the bus, like, of course, I was heartbreaking because I love the bus and we put so much work into it that I was like, I really need to know we're selling it to the right person. Someone that it's going to enjoy it, someone that it's going to appreciate all our work, and someone that it's going to take care of it. And when we met the new owner of the bus, right away we hang up the phone and we both are like, that's the person.
That's her.
She's the one.
But Kathy she's made a fantastic spot that pays homage to Tio's entire legacy and respectfully so to us as well. And we've received messages from time to time from people who were there at the very beginning somehow of our journey, and that now they're working from home remotely in our bus for an extended weekend in the Austin, Texas area, and it's mind blowing. It's very cool.
Yes, and it's people also that are like, well, we wanted to do bus life, but we wanted to try it first and see if this is something that we could do.
Mm-hmm.
And after staying in your bus, we totally could do it. And I'm like, wow, somehow we're helping people figure it out what to do with their life. And that's so cool.
And then a long-term project, I'm still trying to convince Marijose to let me do it. I almost messed up and did it on my own. I was browsing eBay one day and found an old RV that was for auction, and all the proceeds benefited charity, and I was like about to bid on it. But I think long term, this is maybe a 2-year goal. It's going to be a project for the channel that I'm kind of going to take hold of once I can convince her. So Joshua, help me out.
You already convinced me. We just need the shop first.
So yeah, what I'm wanting to do is buy an older like Toyota Dolphin or a Sun, I think a Sun Chaser or something like that, and convert it and make sure it's tip top shape, and then at the end of the build give it to one of our subscribers. No strings attached, no like raffle for money, just literally someone who subscribed to our channel in the comments, just pick and give it away. I feel like that would be a really cool way for us to pay back a community that's opened up so much possibility for the two of us.
And we also get a lot of people being like, we wish we could do these, but I don't know how to build, or I don't have the money to buy it right now, or they're just afraid of it. And sometimes you just need that little push to start living your own life and take the wheel of what you want to do. So it will be great if we could just do it and give it away to someone that would appreciate it and get them out there,
Man, that is fantastic, you guys. That I really hope you guys are able to do that, because that would be, such a life-changing thing for somebody. I really appreciate you guys so much joining me today. I do want to be respectful of your time. Where can people find you on your socials?
So we are on Instagram at Tio Adventura, and then was you there? It just told us our connection was unstable.
Okay, yeah.
We're on Instagram at Tio Adventura Van. We're on YouTube. You can just search Tio Adventura. And then we have links to pretty much everything as well at our website, tioaventura.com.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. This was such a good conversation, and I'm so excited to see, what you guys do in the future. And, if you guys are ever traveling around California area, I'd love to have you guys stop by and be on the podcast in person.
That will be fun.
We didn't get to that, but we will be heading out that way shortly. That's our next destination, is heading southwest. So
hope to meet you guys soon.
We'll see you guys out there. And thanks so much for spending, the last hour here with us as well. That means the world to us.
Thank you. I've had such a great time. This has been awesome, you guys. Thank you for joining me on this week's episode of the Peach Life Podcast. Next week, we'll be joined by Graham from Woodness Goodness. See you next week.